Don't ask me who though. Hi, Brian. Oh, is it working now?
Says it is.
Let's use that. It's just.
I'm just gonna have to go ahead and,
Not so much today?
no, it says I have an excellent connection.
It is.
You'll just have to go and I'll get that, you guys will do it.
All right, good evening to tonight's meeting, March 21st. If I could start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is nobody on?
Can you turn it off?
Turn the volume down?
As long as it'll go. Nobody's on.
I know, but we can't technically turn it off, so.
Sorry, I just have to listen to the music.
Right.
During the meeting. Sorry.
Oh,
Tom's on.
Tom's on now, okay. Dan, you want to hit the first one, which is the lead agency for the water supply project at Lower Baxter?
Yes, thank you. In February, the board circulated its intent to be lead agency for the purpose of seeker review for the Lower Baxter site. No objections were received. So Karen LaBruta provided you with a resolution which would actually name yourselves seeker lead for the purpose of review. We can't take any action under that seeker review tonight, but I'm hoping in April we will be able to consider whether a negative deck is appropriate, and that would, if you determine that, then seeker would be closed and we'd be able to move on with permitting another activity.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we are looking at a proposed local law revising our building code administration enforcement procedures. Dave, do you want to give us a run through of that?
Sure.
Sorry, I tried to get it just a quick and your summary was still pages long.
I know, I'll try to use that one. Let me just hold on, I just gotta get that.
Mayor, I believe that the board should.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Should determine that you are the lead agency.
Oh,
Because, it was the intent to become lead.
right,
Now, since there are no objections, I
right.
think you should
We just have to declare.
declare yourselves.
So I need a motion to declare that?
I make that motion to declare us lead agency on the Lower Baxter project.
I'll second it.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Sorry
you.
about that, Dan, I
No,
missed that.
Thank you.
Okay. So this, I think this started, the genesis was to have a change to the violations and enforcement, and as we were looking at it, we realized that there are several different statutes that cover some of the same territory. There's an old chapter 95, which is the building construction, which covers, purports to cover, building inspector appointment and applications and violations and enforcement. And it's only about 6 or 7 pages long. It's an old, I think it was 1979 or thereabouts it was adopted. And then in 2007, there was another law adopted that was done because they changed the state regulations and sort of expanded those regulations to provide for the uniform enforcement of the building code. And that really covered everything. I mean, you know, the same stuff that was in Chapter 95, but Chapter 95, for whatever reason at the time, still stayed on the books. So they both kind of have similar provisions, but some are inconsistent. Some are good in Chapter 95 and some are not, you know, so it's sort of like if you ever came down to trying to interpret which one applied, it would be difficult. And then there are a couple of others. The zoning law also has provisions for enforcement of the zoning laws, but it also talks about appointment of the building inspector and kind of some of their powers. So, and then there's the Unsafe Buildings Law. So basically what we did is just kind of consolidate everything. We didn't reinvent the wheel. It was primarily based on the updated regulations from the Department of State, which lay out this uniform model code, but there have been some changes since it was adopted in 2007. So that was the template, and then it's kind of the stuff that was, you know, significant in the older laws were incorporated. And the highlights of those would be like there was some good language in the old building construction code about revocation, for example. So that got cut and pasted into the new law. The zoning law obviously has discussion about conforming with the zoning law and giving the building inspector authority over those things. So those were put into the new law as well. But I would say the primary changes really related to enforcement and kind of redefining violations to be, you know, again, because all the violations, there were violations here in the zoning, some in Chapter 95 in the unsafe building, and they weren't all consistent. They're probably all there, but what this does is it puts it all in one place and it doesn't leave, you know, any ambiguity about, you know, just about anything that's within the building department's jurisdiction, whether it's the uniform code, which was pretty much what was covered as violations previously, or the zoning law, or any kind of these ancillary, you know, unsafe buildings, or just generally something that the building inspector determines to be unsafe would be covered. And then the building inspector can issue a violation notice, and that could include, and basically, again, there were two different kinds of violation notices, and then the model law had something, it wasn't even called a violation notice, it was called an order to remedy. So there were sort of inconsistencies in all that, so we just created one provision for notices of violations that could include, you know, stop work orders. It could give you X period of time to cure, which is what the old law says. But what we added was something that was in the updated regs from the Department of State, that if there's something that you want to have cured sooner, or you want to start the cure sooner, you can say, look, you got to start this immediately, and you can finish it as long as you're acting diligently to finish it. So that would provide more, especially if there's like a health and safety situation. So and then there's some model language in there about how the violations should look, so that let's take away some of that possible ambiguity about that. And then the whole kind of fine structure, fines and penalties, that was beefed up to, you know, the penalties start at 500 and they end at 6,000. You know, first offense, second offense, third offense. Each day of a violation is an offense. It kicks up from a violation to a misdemeanor on the second offense and the third offense, and yeah, so that.
And when we were looking at that, other municipalities had that where it kicked up,
Yeah,
and we didn't. We were at just a flat $250 a day.
Yeah, and I looked at that pretty carefully, and it is in fact allowable. I mean, in my opinion, it's you know, there's an old AG opinion from 2004 that talks about it, where somebody was, you know, asking whether the 250, which is the reason is the statute is kind of unclear, but when you get to the AG opinions and the case law, it is clear that you you can go above that.
Mhm.
So, that will allow for, a little bit more. And then also the issue with the village clerk, just kind of some of these things that we've done by resolution were put into the law. So, the village clerk was one of them, and, the combining of the code enforcement officer and the building inspector, I mean, it was in the main law, the 2000 law, it was the code enforcement officer, and then in a few other laws, it was the building inspector, but there's still these references to the code enforcement officer. So it's really, it's all, you're allowed to do.
Kind of cleaning everything up and putting it in one spot.
Yeah, so, because it does change some of the zoning law provisions, it does kick it into that, 7-706, I believe it is, of the village law that requires, the referral to county planning, and obviously we'll need to do a seeker review. I guess Karen could probably do that, Dan, and then, the public 10 days notice, and different notice requirements, but, I'm sure that people are gonna wanna maybe chew on it a little bit. And,
Yeah, I don't think everybody had a chance to really
yeah, but
delve
that's
into it.
at least you
right?
get,
So
the other
what's-
thing, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so, the other big, responsible person was sort of expanded and clarified so that it's really anybody who is determined to be part of the problem, corporation, somebody who's part of the corporation, they have to be deemed to be culpable, and that would be up to the building inspector, but, it makes that clearer.
Okay.
Dave, I have a question.
Yeah.
Can our code be a little bit more rigid than the state building code? In other words, looking at maybe derelict buildings or something, can we have language that would be a little bit tougher? On
You
some
can, but
buildings or some
I'll tell you,
building
John, if you
owners?
look at that language, it's pretty tough, and it talks
Okay.
about, and what I did add was, it doesn't if the building inspector in their discretion deem it to be unsafe, they have
Mhm.
the ability to, to call it out, so.
But how about from an appearance standpoint? Maybe not a safety issue, but maybe trying to uphold the character of a community.
Well, if it's in violation of, it's gotta be in violation of something.
Yeah.
So if there, and that, I'm glad you mentioned that, because the whole issue of, well, what is a violation if
Mhm.
so the way that this is drafted, it's, anything that was submitted that would have led eventually to the building permit, not
Mhm.
just the application
Mhm.
for the building permit, but the site plan, the special use permit, if there were any sort of, if you said something in one of those, applications and you do something different,
Mhm.
then, you're in violation potentially. So that gives that, you can't simply say, people have different tastes and stuff like that, so you've gotta have something objective, an objective standard as to why, if you don't like something, you just can't say, I don't like it because I like this or I like that, but if somebody has made a representation, in an application or in something related to the application, then you do have that discretion.
I'm kind of thinking of existing
That's what I
structures
thought
that
he
might
was-
be in disrepair that really are very detractive
Yeah,
for the
so-
community.
Say a
can
vacant
we-
building sitting around that, maybe has some busted windows.
Yeah.
and-
Or just looks really, it's an eyesore, and not, not representing the community.
Yeah, that's
properly.
interesting. I mean, that, you'd have to sort of see, again, it has to be some objective standard, so we would have to define, what it is about it. I mean, certainly like a broken window is that's
Yeah.
a safety hazard,
Okay.
and, so I would imagine, you could, there is a lot of
Okay.
wiggle room in those
Is there,
things about.
is there a time limit on abandonment and that sort of thing that leads to, like an abandoned building, how long can it be abandoned? I mean, can it be abandoned indefinitely? Can it be abandoned for a year, 2 years, 6 months?
Yeah,
Is there anything in
you
the
lose
code that addresses
You lose a
that?
use, but in terms of, if somebody wants to keep something vacant, I don't think you can stop them.
Abandoned, deteriorating.
Well, like, yeah, for
Deteriorated,
instance, we have
deteriorated.
like foreclosure homes,
Yeah.
and some of the banks are good about hiring a management company to come and at least mow the lawn and, do a few things. But then there's others that we have difficulty reaching the bank that owns the house, and it's in such,
Right, and there's a statute that, you know, I think we dealt with that a
Okay.
couple of years ago, where
Okay.
there was definitely recourse, and
Yeah.
I don't think we decided to.
it's just difficult because you
forward,
don't even know who you're
yeah.
dealing with.
Yeah, but you have this ability to kind of do stuff sort of, you know, on your own if you follow the protocols, and that was, you know, I wasn't looking at that
No.
specifically
No.
for this, but, but
Yeah.
it does play into it, so,
Yeah, I mean, a number of years ago, I think I looked into the building code for, I think it was Bar Harbor, Maine. And they were really strict on how a building would look. I mean, right down to almost the color of a shutter. I mean, it became probably very onerous for a lot of people, but they were very strict in trying to maintain a particular.
the architectural standards,
oh,
so
yeah,
if you
yeah.
establish those standards and
Yep.
people sign, I mean, coming back,
Yep,
you know, after the fact, maybe a little more difficult, but
Yeah.
I'll look into that, yeah.
yeah, actually, I'd like to get together with you on that.
Sure.
Because I've
Okay.
spent a lot of time looking at
That's,
Bar Harbor and
that's
some others.
interesting, no, that's a good,
I think it was
So
Bar Harbor.
what's our next steps here, Dave?
well, we just gotta get any comments, and there is some, I mean, it's kind of a long statute, and I put it together fairly quickly, so
Right.
there's some typos that I even noticed
Okay.
today as I was going through it, so I wanna clean that up.
Okay,
But then, we would have to we'd have to go through the seeker process, if I could get with Karen to
Sure.
get that, we'd probably end up doing, I
all
would
right, so
imagine,
this
a long-
board at this point just needs to be reviewing the document.
There's no other action
And
to
we're not
take
gonna
right
set
now.
up
Can't
a
take-
public hearing or anything like that?
No, too early for that, we need to go
Okay.
through that process first, so I'll lay
Okay.
out a timeline after I confer with Karen.
Yeah, I'll give her a heads up and
Thanks, Dave.
copy you.
Does anybody have any questions for Dave?
Not at this time, no.
No, we need some time to delve
Yep.
into this.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. Okay. In your packet, you'll find the tentative budget. So this is just an opportunity to give it to you guys. I know none of you have seen it yet. Liz and I have been working very hard on this budget. I met with several of you to develop some of the information in here. I am proposing a 1% tax increase in here. Will carry us. So it was out on the website for everybody to be able to take a look at it. You guys take a look at it. And I think our next step that we have to do now is set the public hearing, which will be at our next meeting, which will be April 4th. Anybody have any questions? But I know you guys are just receiving it, so. I guess take a good look at that as well, and then we'll be discussing and going through it at our next meeting. All right. Approval of the Village Green and Public Assembly event for the Pawling Free Library, which is to use the green from June 28th through September 2nd for any of the children's activities while you're going through your construction phase, correct?
That's the idea, yeah. So we'll try to schedule around whatever your needs are. We don't want to get in the way of Second Saturdays or the farmers market or anything, but weekday afternoons, it seems like the gazebo is generally free, so we would love to be able to do things that we've traditionally done in our courtyard in your space, so that if the construction starts in the courtyard, we have a place to do those sorts of things.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I think it's.
Do I have a motion to
I'll make a
approve this?
motion.
Make a motion, do I have a second?
No second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Along with the library, since we're on the library topic, I did buy my gala ticket today.
Saw that.
So I want to remind everybody that they have their Centennial Gala, May 21st.
Look at a calendar real quick.
I just bought the ticket, you would think I could remember. So just to remind everybody to help support the library. And if the library needs any volunteers to help with the gala, consider volunteering for that as well. Did I have the date right or not?
It's gonna take me a
All
moment,
right.
I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure, well,
I can't, well, I brought
We'll get it
Nina
on.
so that I could answer any questions about the permit, but there were no
Okay.
questions, and didn't come prepared to answer questions about the
that's
gala.
all right. So another announcement is we are finally, sort of, oh, it is running, okay. We are going live streaming on YouTube. We are live tonight. Had a little trouble. So we will have access to it from our website, but right now, if you follow us on YouTube, you will be able to live stream our meetings. So that's
And to find that on YouTube, what's the address for that?
I'm going to get a link to put up onto the website,
Okay.
so.
so
all
you
you'll
can
have
just
to do
click
is
on that,
it.
and then you
Okay.
can become a follower, I guess.
And if you subscribe, you'll get
Subscribe, okay.
an invitation whenever we run a meeting. It'll let you know when it's gonna be.
And that's gonna be for planning, zoning,
Planning, zoning, and village board.
right?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so that's finally here. We've been working the kinks out. Metro North Treasurer's Report. Do I have a motion to accept the Treasurer's Report as submitted?
So moved.
And I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and now we have a lot of minutes. We have January 4th, January 18th, February 7th, February 22nd, and March 7th. Does anybody have any questions? I guess I need a motion first to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Anybody have any questions regarding the minutes or comments?
No, thank you, Jennifer.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Now we are on to the engineer's report.
Thank you. In your packet is a proposal from Bella to fly the village and take aerial photos of the village, and then to interpret those photographs into a rectified photographic map of the entire village. The proposal is for $15,000, and it pays for the flight, the preparation, the ground control so the flight can be rectified to reality, and then ultimately an orthophoto that is scalable. It's a necessary prerequisite to a number of the projects that will be coming up if we do anything on West Street or.
Right, so I've requested to get West Street and Lakeside to a shovel-ready position, so that if I can find funding, we can jump on it. I'll know what kind of funding I'm seeking out for it, and in order to do that, we need this type of information to kind of start the process of getting it shovel-ready.
This will give us the ability to get that kind of preliminary work done. It won't be an actual design
Right.
of anything, but it will have these data in the bank for wherever in the village you wanna go. It's time sensitive because if we fly after the leaves are out, we lose a lot of detail that we would otherwise leave. So if you're able to approve that tonight, we'll get the plane up and get the photos in the bank.
I think it's a great idea, and can that be used for other mapping as well, like mapping, a base map for like water,
Absolutely,
sewer,
yeah.
everything?
For example,
Drainage.
If we determined that the water main along Dutcher needed to be fixed, this would be used for the preliminary design of that. And scalable, so we'd know how many feet it is, we'd know interferences.
So you can do a cost estimate.
At a reasonable cost estimate, yes.
And this also does elevations?
Oh, yeah, it's a three-dimensional, so you'll have
Yep.
1 foot contours for the whole village.
Which is awesome to have 1 foot.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we accept the proposal.
Okay,
I will second it.
okay. Any questions or concerns?
No?
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Mhm.
moving on to the water, I've got the daily reports. These will be with Jennifer and the village file, but these are the daily reports for the work that Roars has been doing, putting the water line in between the Untitled wells and the Baxter Green Treatment Plant. The work has to be done by the 31st because of the emergence of the species after that period of time. So we've been pressing the contractor to do it. We asked him for prices if he had to work Saturdays, because that's not part of his normal bid. And what he came back with is I'll give you a price for Saturdays, but also I need to give you a price for extended days, because if we have a good day where we can get a little more done before we close, it's more efficient to be able to hit the target. So to date on the project, all of the pipe north of the wetland is in the ground. We expect it to be tested tomorrow, flanges welded onto the ends, and testing tomorrow. They started putting the pipe in south of DP 22 on the Baxter Green property. No pipe as of today was in the ground, but trenching began. And it looks like we're gonna make the March 31st deadline, I know. And Jeff, who has been managing the project for us, has been pushing them hard on this. To date, you've spent about $3,000 above the base bid in some of that overtime work to keep it moving. The way we set the project up, he had a base bid of $200,000 plus or minus a few. And then we had a 10% contingency item that was within the project budget overall. So this $3,000 would come out of that $20,000 contingency. So it's not asking you for approving more money, it's part of the money you've already approved. Lower Baxter, thank you for the becoming lead agency on that. Russell will be submitting a brief letter report on the suitability of the wells for public water supply purposes. We ran a test for a little over 2 weeks, 210 gallons a minute sustained yield. Water quality samples have been sent out. We don't have those data back yet, but we expect the quality to be excellent based on the sampling that we did in the first 2 wells. So I don't think there'll be any difference there. Russell's letter report will conclude that there's no significant impact to the environment from the use of this as a water supply, provided you ultimately get permits to do it. That's critical for the next step in the lower Baxter seeker, which is a determination by the village board as to whether there's a significant environmental impact or not. If you conclude that it's not a significant impact, you will issue a negative declaration and seeker will be closed. And we're hoping, we have to get comments back from SHPO, State Historic Preservation Office, which we hope to have between now and your April meeting. And with that and Russell's report, I think we would be in a position to recommend to you to issue a negative deck. We have a call with EFC and DOH on Thursday, State Health, to review the Unsafe project, the finances, and whatever concerns the state might have. The state has requested that meeting, so it's their agenda, and we'll answer whatever questions come up. And that concludes my report.
With the music.
The music was the correct. That was the hook.
You get the hook at the Oscars.
That's it.
You're done. We
That's what
stay-
happens when you only have one person on the phone and they hang
I bored them so much.
up. Tom is really sick and that's why he's at home. He must have just had enough.
So that's good news with the for the water, they're laying all the pipe down, they seem to be moving along pretty well.
Yes, yes, I'm very pleased. The, you know, the property you bought from Mr. Umscheid is beautiful sand and gravel. It's amazing that wasn't mined more in the past, but it's very nice material.
Great.
We have also the Metro North bills in the amount of $584.20. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody have anything else? Just quickly, we have been working on the website as well, and I believe that is supposed to go live Friday, maybe.
Yes.
We're still working on changes to it, but it hopefully will be out Friday, so. I think that's all I have. Did I forget anything? All right, well, thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Oh, motion to adjourn, that might be helpful.
Yeah. So moved.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, thank you, have a good night.
Public comment?
Oh, that's right, too. Wow, what's wrong with me tonight? Public comment, anybody have anything?
You got the date right.
Did I get the date right? Thank you, Brian, at least I got something right tonight.
Just for John, Nantucket is probably one of the strictest townships for building codes.
I would suspect you're probably right.
They're down to, you
I
have
would
a
think you're
choice
right.
of 12 colors for your house.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I don't know if they were successful, and I'm sorry, I can't remember what municipality it was, but they were having a problem with unrented commercial space.
Mhm.
And they spoke of fining landlords for not renting commercial space.
Wow.
And that's a
Yeah.
problem that some neighborhoods where I came from in Brooklyn had, where they were waiting for a big company to come, and it sat empty for years.
Look at that.
That's a tough one.
But there are a few places that would be nice to rent out.
A due process claim.
Yep, yep. All right, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, good night, everyone.
Right.